Welcome to another great installment of Younger Life Live. Good morning, I'm Rick Federici.
And I'm Mary Anthony.
And look who we've got here.
I know it.
Dennis Foley, welcome to the Younger Life Live studios.
This is great stuff. Thanks for bringing me in today.
We're so excited you could join us.
Stoked.
This is going to be great. And we're here to talk about, about a bunch of things like
Look
usual.
at all of us in our cameras.
I know
Dennis,
it.
you throw yours up.
Okay.
Your camera's up
I
there.
love this. I
We
love
have
this.
a triple split screen on YouTube. It's Younger Life Together, little space, and then live. And you can actually see Dennis Foley. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend who said to Rick Federici, dude, you're turning 50 this year. Woo!
The big 5-0, Rick.
That's right.
Big 5-0, you got it. It is great to be here. Dennis, Mary and I absolutely love having you here in studio. Let's talk about Dennis Foley, the man, the myth, the legend. Let's hear about you. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's start there.
You know what? As far as like, I think, looking back, if some of the people that I grew up with, if someone had said it, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be the patting myself on the back. If thinking being a writer is such a big deal. I just think it's something fun. It's a profession I really enjoy. But looking back, I don't think people that I grew up with would have said, yeah, Foley, he'll turn out to be a writer.
Yeah.
I wasn't the brightest bulb, so to speak, as a kid, because I didn't really concentrate on school. It wasn't something, I was the fifth of 6 kids. My older brother, Johnny, he was a smart guy. Hey, John, here's a Hardy Boy. Why don't you read it today? By the time the 5th kid rolls around, it's just mom swept you out the door. So
With a kiss in your lunch.
Education wasn't a focus, but there was always, we had storytellers in the family and creativity. So I think I picked up some of the writing habits and storytelling from like my Uncle Mike.
Really?
Yeah. He was
That's fascinating.
Great old Irish guy.
When did you realize that you not only got a little bit of that creativeness, but wanted to actually put it into words?
Yeah, and right around in the late 90s, you know how all of a sudden I'm approaching 40. It's a good number.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only, Rick's only 10 beyond that.
Yes.
So, but it was, it's like I've undertaken a number of different jobs, and I really enjoyed. And one of the jobs I truly enjoyed, I used to work as an electrician for the Department of Streets and Sand, or as they say in Chicago, the Department of Streets and Sand.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And as an electrician, I traveled all around the city. So you get all these cool ideas, but at the same token, at that time, I was going to Columbia College to get a master's in creative writing, and things just kind of took off then.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, to know you were already going to school for a master's in creative writing, you already had that kind of idea and that focus. It wasn't just hit you as you were turning 40.
Yeah, it was just it was like a shift, Mary, where all of a sudden it's okay. Hey, what is it I want to focus on as I continue on the rest of my life? So I made that kind of change and said, I'm going to go back to school and start getting into the whole process of learning how to take those ideas and those stories and share them. Because I thought growing up in the South Side of Chicago, there was a lot of good things, a lot of good tales of woe to be told.
Yeah.
See, and this is
so
a real cool theme, Dennis, here on Younger Life Live, and we talk about younger, longer kind of attitude, whether you're 16 or whether you're the wisest of years. There's a point in life too where maybe you're changing jobs, you want to try something cool, it's a hobby or something. Here's an awesome example of a Younger Life Live theme where he just did it and he said, I'm going to go for it. Is this the first novel or the first book that you've kind of put together? Or?
And I was during my second year at Columbia, so it was a 4-year program at night. One of the professors I had, real cool guy, he was his name's Sam Weller, and he was real big on the Ray Bradbury stories. He's his official biographer. Ray Bradbury has passed, but Sam kind of wrote all the stuff about him, and Bradbury endorsed it. But he's reading, everybody's working on their stories, and then he said, for something different, let's do something about what you're working on during your day of work. So I took it. I wrote a couple of with the Streets and Sand. We go out and do our stuff, but one of the biggest focuses on our day was where are we going to eat, Rick? Where are we going for lunch? So I wrote a couple of food reviews under the guise of the Streets and Sand man. I took on that persona. And
I like this.
And he asked me if I had any more. And eventually when I said, I got tons of these. We go out to eat every day. So I gave him some more, and he turned me on to a local publisher. And next thing I know, they came out with a Streets and Sandman's Guide to Chicago Eats. That was about 10 years ago. And then followed that up later with a book, my story about my family called The Drunkard's Son. And that came out in 2012 and did real well with the Chicago Press and is in and used in a number of Chicago area high schools.
That
Okay,
is
wait.
so cool.
I have to go backwards because we'll talk about book 2 and then of course the most card. This is so much fun. Dennis Foley here in studio, Rick Federici, Mary Anthony. Today's Younger Life segment brought to you by the LaPorte Hospital. We thank them, don't we? We
Yes,
love
we
them to
do.
pieces. All right, so as you know, my background in Chicago radio and TV for years and years, being downtown, we always tried to find a different cool place, whether it was having a Polish sausage.
Oh yeah. I'm an Italian sausage guy. More though.
Me too. But throw out something I'm curious that sticks in your mind that you guys and your crews at the Streets and Sand would go out to and just be like mouth watering, no matter what it is, no matter how good or bad, because everything's good for you.
Yeah,
Dennis Foley.
And you know what, Rick? For anybody that's coming into the city, whether it's somebody that lives there or is driving through, whatever, you've stumbled across a place where there's a good bargain with good food. When you look outside, say at lunchtime or the close of the day dinner, and you see Streets and Sand vans or ComEd vans or something like that parked out there, this is where the regular Joe goes to eat.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites, I'm a big Italian beef guy.
Oh, me too.
And as a South Side guy at 70th and Pulaski, Tony's beef.
Really?
And when you eat a Tony's beef, you get the fries that come with it, and you kind of
Wait, you got to do it. Okay, you're on camera now.
Yeah, you go ahead and you munch on it and go ahead and let the juice drip onto the fries.
My husband's
and then
probably
stuff the
taking
fries in your
notes.
mouth.
Jeremy, are you freaking?
He's
Because
probably
I
taking
am.
notes. Yeah, he loves that too.
And can I add one more?
Sure.
My
Please.
favorite, we know our area. We're lucky. We get great pizza.
Yes.
And Chicago pizza, one of my favorites, thin crust. We get so much on that on the deep dish.
Yes.
Yeah.
But thin crust pizza, Vito and Nick's at
Really?
84th and Pulaski of all places too. But it's owned by the Baracco family, and they've been going since the mid 1960s.
Wow.
And it's just it's the ultimate in thin crust. And when you go in there, you got, for good luck, you got to go and rub the carpeted walls.
there you
Carpeted
go.
walls.
I'm digging that.
I
Mary
love
wasn't
that.
even around when carpeted walls were kind of
That's awesome, though. How cool.
Cut a little piece out, bring it home, throw it on the in front of the old bathroom vanity.
Yeah, there you go. That is awesome. Oh, I'm curious, how long then? I mean, you're quite accomplished for really just beginning writing. I mean, that's amazing story straight from your teacher on. When did you decide to stop with the Road Crew?
Yeah, and the one thing I'll tell you too, just because when Rick says, and Mary, as you know, with this show, talking about hey, the younger life,
That's
don't
it.
be afraid to do things, make changes. Yeah, when I was younger, as I was saying, nobody would have said that Foley might go ahead and write some books one day. I remember as a kid, and I don't look at it and say, "Oh, those mean teachers." I kind of laugh at it now.
Yeah.
But I was the kid with the dunce cap in the corner because I couldn't stand still. I was
Yeah.
always shaking and baking. Back in the days, they didn't say, "Hey, you had ADHD" or anything. They just
Right.
say, "Hey, that guy's a dunce."
That's
hey.
so Rick
Yeah.
Federici.
Well, it's true too.
So,
I mean, as
yeah.
times evolve, we learn more. But yeah.
And I used to have a stuttering problem. I couldn't say W's and S's. And my grandfather sat me down when I was about 10 years old and just used to have me sit on his lap and have me read to him.
Yeah.
And every time I stumbled across like a W or S, he'd just pat me on the leg and help me kind of work through that W or
Yeah.
S. So it's just kind of funny is, hey, if I can go ahead and write a book coming out of that background, anybody can.
I think that's my favorite message out of all of it. It really
Absolutely
is that don't let life pass you by and you later say, I wish I had tried that. If you tried and it doesn't work, who cares? At least you tried it.
Yeah,
you know?
try to make a change.
You
If not,
try. I think that's fantastic.
redirect.
And you obviously, this is what you are meant to do. So
Oh,
this
thanks,
is
Sam.
You have
this is
great
for
energy.
sure.
Can we hear a little bit too? And I want to ask you a couple things. First off, family-wise, you have any children? If you don't mind us asking you.
Yeah, so I'm married to my lovely bride, Sue, who's
Hi,
Hi,
Sue.
Sue.
and she teaches at St. Barnabas School, which is right down the street. She worked over in Bridgeport for a number of years at a school there called St. Barbara.
Oh yeah.
And that was a nice little hour commute kind of each way, battling traffic. So now, just this past year, she picked up a job right in the neighborhood, and she can walk down our hill, and it's a 2-minute commute walking
Wow.
to school, which
Well,
is
and
cool.
how healthy.
Yeah,
And
then-
There you
green.
go,
We
another
just did a
tie-in.
green. We just did a Go Green show. So look at that.
Dennis is going to be our. Dennis is
He's
gonna be
our
on-
poster
I
child.
love you. This guy's great.
He's our poster child.
And then I have 3 boys. So Matt, my
wow.
oldest boy is Matt, is just turning 27. He lives out in New York now. And then 2 boys, Pat, who is 24, and a graphic designer that real creative kid, and he works at it's pretty cool. He's a fly fisherman. And it isn't cool when you get a job that you get a job where you can follow your passion
Yes.
too. So he's a designer, but he also fly fisherman, huge into it. So now he's working at Orvis, the outfitters, and so he's
That's
working for them in
awesome.
Chicago. And my youngest buck is 16-year-old Mike Mary, like your 16-year-old, fresh out on the road with her driver.
Look out!
these
It's
two.
scary.
Hey, we can
bonded.
get them together for a little drag racing one day.
Oh, now I'm having a heart attack. It's funny. My daughter, my husband is one that would love to be the drag racer, but my
He's the kid
daughter,
like us.
Sure.
she knows that want her to be very careful. But what's funny is I've had to repeatedly tell her, you have to get up to the speed limit. I think she's so cautious, so afraid she's going to speed that instead she's the opposite. My husband calls her the granny driver. But I would prefer
you?
that. No, it's her. It's
But
my
I mean,
daughter.
you're not a granny driver, and your hubby's not a granny driver.
No, I'm more granny than him for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he makes me car sick.
Sure,
He's
sure.
That is so
speeding
mean.
around
My
and
wife
nuts.
says it all the time. Would you stop going back and forth?
Yeah, he's a little too fast. So I'm glad she isn't that. But
Right.
you got to get up to the speed limit or you're going to get run over. That's
Right.
the other side
Yep.
of it. So
Dennis, are you
Well, that's
the
so exciting.
Are you the father figure? Are you the guy in the house that takes your son out and says, "Come on, let's get in the car"? Or how does that work? Does he work with both you and your wife on the driving? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
when we were doing all the training with,
Yeah.
when you have that permit and stuff, I was definitely the one doing it. And I would grab a couple, like, your little, your little chairs, the fold-up chairs you bring out to go watch a sporting event when you're watching kids. I'd go out to the cemetery, make them do the little backups into the, the kind of parallel parking.
park, yeah.
And have the chairs, one in front, one in back.
That's
so,
fantastic.
Just giving them a little something. And then we'd kind of drive around the cemetery, then get him out on the road a little
Yeah.
bit. Like you said, you're just looking for that comfort zone and try not to make him where he's too jumpy.
That's it.
Just
Oh, yeah.
point out a couple times you're grabbing onto the
That's
handle.
it.
Oh, geez,
You're trying not to make it obvious.
But, when it's done, I'd make a couple suggestions. But like you, I think he did a nice job.
Yeah.
I was happy with his driving.
I
so.
can't imagine teaching my children, any of them, in city driving. It would be very different
It's
than
tough.
back road driving. I mean, you go out here, you're going to run in, you're going to see another car or two. It's not that big of a deal. Even to go downtown, I say, like right down here, is fairly easy. Compared to city driving is so
Sure.
different. That
Can
would
I
be-
tell you?
I don't know that
You're,
I would be
you're
freaking
a
out.
wonderful woman, whether you're in our Younger Life Live audience here, whether it's a Valparaiso or Chesterton or LaPorte. Some of these downtown areas do resemble and do with the parallel parking and the
Yeah.
some meters. But I will tell you, you become a master. Even to this day, I say to my kids, not only on finding a spot, but
Yeah.
also getting the spot before anybody, but then getting there and doing it in one swoop, like
Getting in there.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Smooth, right?
the only problem is, people that live in the city because you look at their front and back bumpers and they're just torched.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
man.
They're
Right,
just
right.
scratched.
Yeah, that
Yep.
would be quite stressful. I can't imagine one having to do that myself on a regular basis, but two
Sure.
having to teach my children and know that they are learning and you're in
Right.
this environment. That would be really scary. I'm curious, Dennis, what did your wife think? Okay, so you were at this job for years, as an electrician.
Right.
When you kind of said, I think I want to be a writer. What did she think?
Yeah, and you know what? In writing, Mary, you're hitting on a big thing there. It's probably not the best thing as far as like to feed a family.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I've always had, and I have a job too where I work, and before I was an electrician, it sounds a little bit weird too, but I went through things and changes throughout time. But I actually, when I came out of school, I went to a small school down in Memphis, Christian Brothers College. It's now called
yeah.
Christian Brothers University. And, I came out of there. I always wanted to get involved in politics. I thought this would be a cool
Really?
thing to do. So most politicians, that you would see like in the Chicago area were lawyers. So I went to school and actually got a law degree, and I went to work and became
You
a Cook
did?
County assistant,
Dude!
a Cook County assistant
My
state's attorney.
goodness.
And then I became a defense attorney. But the thing is, after a while, you can get jaded by seeing all that kind of
Certainly.
negativity. So I kind of left, and then kind of went and shifted and went in and started practicing, or became an electrician. We have
Yeah.
electricians through our family through the years. my brother Tim was the former head of the electricians local 134,
Oh, yeah.
and kind of helped me get my foot in the door. And what a great profession to work in too, because you're out there, you're with other guys. There's that bonding. You're having fun, and no matter if it was working, for a private contractor with the city, you always went out and had a nice lunch for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm big on food, so it was always fun. So now, coming back, it's like, so I still do part-time legal work,
Yeah.
but I don't do so much of the criminal stuff anymore. So I'll do like, real estate closings and like some trust and estates, just kind of, I call myself kind of like a part-time lawyer that way.
Yeah.
And then I get to work on the writing too.
That's
That's
fascinating.
incredible.
I mean, it is, that
awesome.
takes so much dedication to get to. And I imagine that would be difficult to walk away from. But it is refreshing to me to hear someone say that it can get negative, and it can. I mean, it's amazing work that all of our attorneys, our judges, we just had a judge in here too. She was amazing. But I can imagine for myself I'm a positive person. It's hard for me to feel that weight. I mean, it would be tough for me to stay in an environment that I felt was negative. So not only is that extremely brave of you, but it would be very hard to turn your back on all of that dedication and schooling you already had to put into it. I mean, that's a lot.
And I certainly respect all those folks that are involved in that
absolutely.
profession. I mean, I always thought, as a state's attorney, you were wearing the white hat, you're doing a good thing. And I think that's true. And then with
Right.
police, the same way. But for me personally, I just needed to step away and kind of move on. And, that's kind of what I did. And looking back on it too, it's my mother used to say, "Oh, I wish you had stayed in the state's attorney's office." Like, Ma, it's okay. I mean, I had a great time there, but now I'm doing something different, enjoying it too.
By the
So-
way, this is the way I look at it too. Streets and Sand, lawyer, attorney, that cool thing.
Yeah.
School on 5 levels. I mean,
Right.
incredible. Now an established author and still a young guy and a father, a husband, and an overall cool guy.
I know.
This is when he's young.
It really is. It's fascinating.
56, Rick, but they,
Woo!
and I do agree with you, like the segment here, it's about how you feel.
Yeah.
I look at old pictures of myself when I had my little league hat on. We used to play fast pitch every day, go Cubs.
Yes, go Cubs.
Up against the wall. And, I say, that's still me.
Yeah.
My knees may not be as good now, but
Yeah.
the mental part, I still feel like a kid.
Don't you think too that part of it is your constant curiosity to learn new things and try new things? I think that's so important. And we've done numerous studies that we've read and had doctors on that say the same thing. For our skills as we get older, your body doesn't have to age like it does in a lot of people, because it's a mental attitude. They feel old.
Sure.
They tell themselves they're old from very young, honestly. I mean, we've done studies where people start telling themselves that by the age of 40. I can't
Right.
learn new things. I can't go back to school. That's nonsense. And that's part of what keeps you young, your brain fresh, and that cognition. It's important. It's so cool.
That and a good craft beer.
Yeah.
That always
I'm all
helps,
about
too.
this.
And a good laugh,
I'm all about this.
It's fantastic. I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about this book, where the idea stemmed from, and kind of tell us about how it came from an idea to right here in front of us?
Yeah, and so this book, I'm really proud of it because it's called "We Speak Chicagoese: Stories and Poems by Chicago Writers," and the idea kind of came to me probably 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
And then to kind of get to the point, and it's myself and a buddy of mine, Bill Donlin. Bill is he's a guy I went to school with down in Memphis.
Oh.
And he's here. I like to call him my favorite Hoosier because he actually lives in Bloomington, so he's right outside the university.
Sure.
And so it's really cool because it was a good mix because I'm the Chicago guy and Bill's the outsider. So when we would get these stories in, we would, what do you think, Bill? So I'd look at it with a kind of like a Chicago eye on the story, and he'd look at it like as an outside Chicago eye, because you know what? Hey, yeah, this one's okay, but I don't think people from elsewhere may not care much for it. Whereas, hey, this one here, this is a story that can relate to everybody.
That's really
So
neat.
it was a good give and take with the two of us as involved in this. and just a funny guy too. His nickname is Beanie.
Beanie?
Because he has a head the size of a bean. But we like to tell.
Only Dennis can get away with that. You understand
Well,
that, Mary?
and it's
We
funny,
aren't claiming that.
when I told when I was saying I was coming on to talk with you guys, he says he goes, "Hey, make sure you tell them about how we met because it is funny." Just a short one, but
Sure.
we're in the Christian Brothers University down there in Memphis, and I'm walking into the laundry room to do my clothes, and Beanie's in there already. He just finished washing his clothes, so he's taking them out of the dryer or out of the wash, getting ready to put them in the dryer, and all of his items are pink.
Oh no.
And I look over at him because he messed up whatever he put
Yep.
in, and it's his first time doing wash. And I said, "Hey, nice looking clothes there." And he's like, "Hey, thanks a lot." And that's how we kind of met in the laundromat at the
That's
school.
neat.
And been buddies since. That was 1978.
Yeah.
And then
Isn't
here
that
we
cool?
and
It's
then we come back
fantastic.
together for this book, and it really kind of came. The two of us worked well on it, but getting the word out to different writers that we knew,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, we have this idea of a collection of Chicago stories. Would you like to be a part of it?" And I'd mentioned to Mary when we were talking right before the show, one of the writers in here is a great writer named Eric May. And he said, "Hey, Dennis, putting this together, getting writers to commit to giving you stories had to be a lot like herding cats."
Yeah.
And he's right, because it took some time. Yeah, I have a story for you. I'll get that to you, but it takes a while to get them all together. But once they started to come in, and you can see the strength of these stories, and then we would tell another author, "Hey, Stuart Dybeck, who's this, kind of like guru writer in Chicago. He's considered the best short story writer going in the area. He had a book that was the one book, one Chicago, like the library program
Yeah.
called The Coast of Chicago. He came in, and then all of a sudden, other writers
Wow.
said, "Hey, I'm in." So it took about 3 years to finally, once we started the collection, put it together. And I'm real happy with it. And I was the editor along with Bill, and I have a piece in there too. But just I'm most proud of having worked as an editor on it and kind of compiled these stories.
How neat. I was going to ask how did you get the word out? Did you just contact writers that you had already known, or did you just send out a message to different publishers and say, "Hey, contact these writers"? I mean, because to get them in, and did you have any that you said, "We thank you, this is good, but we aren't going to use it"? Because that would be very tough.
Yeah, and we, getting the word out. Yes,
Yes.
we contacted some writers that we knew that would have good Chicago pieces. But it's funny because, a lot of people write, and there might be, but they're not writing about Chicago.
That's
and
it.
that's great because we want stories about every place, different places to kind of get a feel for a number of different areas. But getting Chicago stories from writers, we reached out to some. We put like Craigslist
Yes.
ads out there.
How
We
neat.
little writerly publications, got words out to different schools in the area, like the School of the Art Institute,
Yeah.
Columbia College, Loyola, saying, "Hey, we're looking for stories." And then we started to get some in. But yeah, we did have, obviously there's some that don't make it. And then there's some that we asked, and we didn't get a piece from them either.
really?
But nobody said like, "Hey, Foley, we don't want in your stupid book." We didn't have anybody say
What
that.
you got?
Well, we're glad.
Yo, with the stupid one.
It's just some people you wouldn't hear back from. And in
Yeah.
one author, you don't know when you send something to them. You don't know if they're actually seeing the email, because then I get an
Yes.
email back
You're right.
saying, if you'd like to join our fan club,
Right.
feel free to do so.
You're like,
Right.
okay, wait a minute here. This is not what we wanted.
Yeah.
This is great. So throw out the name of your book. Let's all of us throw it up in the cameras. We got a triple shot going of
we
Rick, Mary,
go.
and Dennis here in studio, Younger Life Live. Dennis, talk about the title of your book and where we can get it, please.
Yeah, and so we speak Chicagoese, and it is stories and poems by Chicago writers. It's available at bookstores pretty much everywhere. Some place in New York or Philadelphia is not going to have it in stock, but someone could go in there and say, "Hey, I'd like it," and it can be ordered.
Amazon.
Amazon for
All
sure.
about it.
The publisher is Side Street Press. So you can always get it. It's nice to support the small guy. So, SidestreetPressInc.com is the publisher. And then, the local bookstores. And if they don't carry it, like I said, they can order up and get it there lickety split too. So
don't you go away. Mary Anthony, Rick Federici will be back with Dennis Foley right here on Younger Life Live. When we return, don't forget on YouTube, Younger Life, one word, a little space and then live, where you could view this, of course, throughout the morning. Rick Federici, Mary Anthony. Today's segment brought to you by the LaPorte Hospital. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Hey guys, watch my new bike trick. Whoa!
Accidents happen. When they do, LaPorte Hospital can help you get on the road to recovery faster. With our 30 minutes or less ER service pledge, we will work to have you initially seen by a medical professional in 30 minutes or less. Less waiting, faster care. The 30 minutes or less ER service pledge at LaPorte Hospital.
I love it.
I know, it's such a great conversation.
Big round of applause.
I'm
Dennis
curious.
Foley.
Dennis, I really want to put you on the spot,
this is great.
but
Younger Life
I'm
Live.
curious on first of all the title. So We Speak Chicagoese. How did you come up with that? It's clever, it's cute. I like it.
And Mary, too, the word Chicagoese, I think most people think about, anybody around, going all around, somebody out in the West Coast or East Coast, Chicagoese, that's those funny people in there that talk with this, that, these, thems, and those.
Yeah.
And you know what? And then that's true. I mean, Chicagoese as a language, is still alive.
Yes.
I mean, during my days as Streets and Sand working, be like, hey, you guys want to go get some? Eat with me? We're going to go down there to the store, okay? And we'll get some raviolis, huh?
Yeah.
So that's there, and I don't think it'll ever die. But for this title, it didn't mean so much like, speaking like that, but hey, we speak Chicagoese. We have Chicago stories.
Yeah,
That's
it's
kind
a
of what
culture.
it came from. And one thing I want to give a plug to here, too, is when I said my son, Pat, was the graphic designer. So he designed the cover and the back.
Wow.
And there's 16 black and white photos in here. And some of the reviewers that have gone through the book are really... talking about how these books, how the photos added so much to the book because it's, gives an additional feel for the city. And that's what we were looking at too.
This is one of my favorites. I noticed it right away. I think
Isn't that
it's
beautiful?
Just,
That's
it
cool.
is.
So your son actually took these shots?
Yeah, he
Dennis,
went around
for
on his own. And,
beautiful.
the cover, hey, and Cub fans will like this too. The
Gorgeous.
cover of the book is behind, and I'm a huge food guy, so we went to eat at Byron's Hot Dogs, which is at right there on Irving Park, about 4 blocks from Wrigley. So we went in there and ate, and then Pat came out, and this is the parking lot. The cover is the parking lot of Byron's, looking back on the L stop, and he said, "Dad." He goes, look, this is perfect. So he took the photo and then he illustrated off of it from there.
Yeah, that is so cool.
The other ones in here, he went out on his own and kind of did his thing and came back with shots. So it turned out great.
Wow. I'm curious what your wife does at the school. What does she teach? Only because I think, obviously you're very creative and your son has that. Is she creative too? Does she really like the arts?
In other
kind
words,
of
what
stuff?
you're saying, does she get it from, and now he's got to answer this correctly because he needs to go home. Does he get the talent from you?
Well,
or
I
does
mean,
he
it
get
could
the talent
just
from
be
your
a
wife? I know what you're going to
different-
say.
It could just be a different kind of creativeness, but is she traditionally creative too?
Yeah, and I think on our side of the family, I was mentioned earlier too, like my Uncle Mike was this big storyteller. So I kind of look at my love of stories coming from him. He'd get us together on family gatherings and let me tell you a little something about the way back days. He'd round all the kids up
love
and
it.
he'd have a flashlight shining and he'd blow some smoke from his cigarette across like it was a cloud and you get absorbed in it. So some of the storytelling stuff on my side and that creativity, maybe, Pat picks up along those lines. But on my wife's side, too, she's a kindergarten teacher.
Oh,
and,
wow.
always doing projects. So,
That's
he
tough.
would see
Good for
that.
her.
And her sister is a gentleman. His name is James K. Spear, and he's like kind of like a big time out, New York guy, but a contemporary artist.
Sure.
And so
Wow.
she's kind of, that flows through her side too. So he's probably grabbed a few, pieces from both sides of the family.
Absolutely. That's
How was
so
was that pretty good,
fascinating.
Rick? Did I
Dude, you're
did I ride the fence okay on that one?
I don't think that he ride the
funny.
fence okay, but I'm proud of him because he we'll get to go home tonight
Yeah.
and be on the good list. You know how that works, right?
Absolutely. No, I mean,
The good list is a good place to be.
Always.
Yes, it is. Well, I really don't want to put you on the spot, but I've got to know if you have a favorite story or poem out of the.
You know what? There are a number of them in there that I really like. Obviously, I think every story in there is really cool. It stands on its own as just a cool story. Would you guys mind if I read the beginning of one?
I would
Please,
love
we would
for you to
love
do
it.
that.
Because this one, I think
Please.
people get a hoot out of. It's called Working Stiff by John McNally, who kind of grew up in the Burbank area. And, it's the beginning of it here, so I'll pull that up here.
Just want to
Please
let
do.
everybody know you're watching and listening to Younger Life Live. Mary Anthony, Rick Federici. Today's segment brought to you by the LaPorte Hospital. In studio, the one and only Dennis Foley. Absolutely phenomenal. And he's going to read for us. This is awesome.
All righty. So Working Stiff. I started working when I was 6. My father had taken me to a flea market to help sell some of his crap, and I had gathered some of my own crap to sell, including a large yellow toy dump truck. The flea market took place on a dusty gravel parking lot of a drive-in movie theater. While my father was busy talking to a customer at the other end of the table, a mother with a small child stepped up to examine our goods. The child, who was at least 3 years younger than me, started playing with the truck, so I cleared my throat, ready to yell out the toy's price in case either one asked me. Before I could say anything, however, they walked away. To my horror, the child took my dump truck with him. At first I assumed, we're almost right at the end here, at first I assumed that the mother didn't know what her horrible thieving spawn had done. But when she looked down at him and then back at me, who was glaring but not saying anything, I understood that the mother was complicit. They were a team, like Bonnie and Clyde. But instead of being lovers, as they were in the movie I had seen at the very drive-in I now stood in, they were mother and son. Not only did I not make any money that day, but I was 6 years old and in the hole, where I would remain pretty much the rest of my life.
I love
It's
that.
a cool start to a story.
That is
And that's
fantastic.
John McNally, real talented writer.
How funny. And relatable on very many levels. It's such a funny.
And it's a good story about him and his father
Mm-hmm.
over the years, how they kind of worked together from 6 years old on.
Wow.
And they would go out to these different, flea markets and things like that and sell their goods. And back in the days when remember the black T-shirts?
Oh, yeah.
Rick, too, with all the names of the AC/DC or the different musical groups on there.
Totally.
They would
Yeah.
sell those at some of the places. So really cool to see this relationship between the father and son.
How cool. That is so funny. How did you guys organize the stories? Was there a method in that? I imagine that would be really difficult.
Yeah, and that was tough because, like you're saying, layering them, what goes with what, and then adding in the photos with it.
Yes.
So, it's just one of those things where we kind of shuffled the deck kind of a number of times, and then all of a sudden we looked at it and said, I think that works. So, yeah, and we have, as far as the authors in here, so many of the, people of different groups and cultures are represented here. And giving voice to all the different people kind of in that Chicago area, and then putting it together where it clicked, and I think it did pretty well. And that's like I said, some of the reviews are coming in, and it's happy because it makes you feel good when you get somebody that's looks at it and says, hey, this is a pretty darn good book, and you need to go out and get it. And so even if it never was heard by anybody, the fact that you went ahead and put it together and have it out there for people that do want to look at it. Just the act of that creating it is something that I'm happy with.
I am
Yes.
getting all kinds of text messages. I had up over the weekend from Dennis's folks that work with him on the book and his team, a great picture of Dennis and the book.
Yeah.
So we got that up. That was up. So if you scroll down to an early Sunday post, I just put another picture of Dennis up on for Younger Life. So I want folks to know this. So people are wondering where they can get this book. So again, I want to throw this out there a few times, and you can get a hold of us, Rick at WIMSradio.com. And of course, we've got connects. But Dennis, why don't you throw that out there again, please, because people are asking.
Yes, I guess the easiest way, like Mary, you had said, at Amazon anybody can get it anywhere there. It's $15.95. I think that's a pretty good bargain. I know I was talking with somebody that was saying $15.95. You should have sold this thing for $19.95. It's like, no, I like to make things where they're affordable.
For
And
folks
that's nice too.
Yeah.
It's very thoughtful.
And then, I mean, bookstores, like I said, a lot of them in the Chicago area have it. If bookstores anywhere, if it's not in there, they'll order it if they ask, because it is in what they call Ingram is like the mass wholesaler that takes care of all the books, so they have it. And then, with the publisher itself, the little guy is I was just looking at Rick there again. Side Street Press Ink.
On
the black and white photos.
Go to 190. Go to page 190. And the reason I say this because I worked, as you guys know, downtown for decades. And I love going downtown. It's literally my favorite city in the world. I was talking with one of my buddies over the weekend, Aldo Filippelli, and he's now living in Southern California. That's where his business is. He moved it from Chicago, but he was down there for years. And we both were chatting over the weekend. We connected again via Facebook, by the way, all things. But we were both talking about just the beauty in these pictures. But who captured? Is this your son again?
Right.
This is an unbelievable picture. Describe on page 190. And if you guys are watching YouTube, Younger Life, one word, a little space, live, is basically how you could search on YouTube for this show, which we're viewing right now. You could see it later on. And then, of course, AM 1420 and WIMS radio. Describe this picture, Dennis, if you wouldn't mind.
And you know what? In that one, Rick, too, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's the Chinatown area, like the entranceway there. But one of the things I really like about it, too, you have that cool-looking structure, the whole Chinatown gate.
Yes.
But in the background is the Sears Tower.
So is great.
And, to get that shot, it was pretty cool. And then, and it fits in with the story that's there, because that's a story called Coming Home.
Talk about that.
That's a gentleman. He's a guy that's in his mid-70s. His name is Tony Saratella, and he wrote this story about World War II. He was just a little young kid working in a little newspaper stand, like a 9-10-year-old, and talking about his brothers and relatives coming home from World War II. And how, all these guys who were just like, and he lived right outside. He's of Italian descent, but there was an area right in there too, close to Chinatown in Chicago, where a lot of Italians live. And he would talk about how his brother and all these guys used to play dice and gamble, and he just looked at them like they were a bunch of clowns. But they went away to World War II and came back, decorated veterans, accomplished great things, and they didn't sit around and brag about it. And he said it just made him think that he'll never look at somebody and judge the old book by the cover again, because they came back and now he had a respect for him and didn't view him the way he did before.
Yeah,
so that's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think the picture is amazing. They've all been amazing, but I love. It's important that the Sears Tower be in there, because I think that's such a recognizable building and structure. People, certainly even that aren't from Chicago, but from the Chicago area at all, that means something. So I think that is important. It's a gorgeous picture, and the stories are just so good. I love that it's also a mixture between stories and poems. I think that's a wonderful thing too. Poetry is not as common. It is on some levels, but it's typically, if you're looking at poems, you're looking at all poems. A book that's mixed is not very common. So I think that was really genius.
And Mary, one of the cool things in there too, I really felt fortunate to get we used a couple of works from authors like Carl Sandburg, the famous poem Chicago, and we were able to use that because it's in the public domain. But we have we have a Chicago poem by Carl Sandburg. Right next to it is a Chicago poem it's called Chicago as well, by John Guzlowski. And then so John has two poems in there. He's considered the foremost Polish American poet in the entire United States.
Really?
Incredible.
And the first poem that he has in there, he writes about he was born in a concentration camp. His parents were slave laborers. They were Polish descent, so and they made him work. When they came over to America, they landed in the north side of Chicago, and a lot of his poetry concentrates and centers around how his dad was, and his dad always had to work and do this, and he talks about the first time his dad ever quit a job because he knew he could do it without fearing for the loss of his life. So pretty powerful poem.
It is. It's moving, and it honors so much for their families and stuff. I'm sure the writers. Have you had any feedback from the writers? I'm sure that they have been very. Aside being honored to be in there, but I'm curious.
And you know what? It was. Because a lot of times folks give you their stories, and they're trusting you to turn out something that they're happy with and looks presentable. And other than one screw up on my part, because I was the one, but Bill was doing stuff. This was one I misspelled one of the author's names.
Okay.
I put an O in there, or an E instead of an O, and he let me have it a little bit, deservedly so. But then he said, "Okay, I forgive you."
Yeah.
But no, as far as the way they're real happy with the way the book looks, the kind of like the presentation with the cover and all
Certainly.
that in
Looks
the
great.
back, and then just the way it was laid out. So yeah, and I think we all kind of feel like we have a good little book here.
Yeah.
I want to throw
it's
this
fantastic.
out there. It's really good. From Morgan Park to Humboldt Park, from the shores of Lake Michigan to the old Chicago Stadium, from flea markets to bar stools, We Speak Chicagoese features powerful stories and poems about Chicago's neighborhoods, back alleys, streets, and characters. And that Chicagoese voice, it pounds, it pulsates, it oozes with city life. You're listening to Younger Life Live here, and of course, there's our
show
Mary
again.
Anthony with the book right there. I love it.
fabulous.
Dennis Foley
It
in
really
studio. You are a breath of fresh air. Here is the challenge to young Dennis, of course, today here on Younger Life. You have got a beautiful speaking voice, and I'm telling you this from radio and TV, Mary and I both agree. You should do, a lot of my friends make major six figures a year doing books on tape, or they do the audio versions of your book.
I
Do
think
you
you're the
have that?
first person who's ever said I have a good speaking voice. So
You do.
I always think I have a whiny voice. So.
Oh no, certainly not.
He could tell the stories of
you
his
know,
books.
Well, it's so true. Also, that audiobooks are such
Huge.
so huge right now too.
Yeah.
We get busy people. I love to read. I don't always have the time to read,
Right.
or I attempt to read really late at night, and I'm
Those
not,
off.
Right.
I'm not going to
3 pages.
retain anything I'm reading. I wake up with the book and my glasses falling off. So I think that audiobooks are a real valid way right now.
Yeah.
That a lot of people they read, listen to a book in their car. Have you been approached by that idea, or would you be interested in?
Yeah,
doing
no,
that?
that would certainly be something that would be fun. I haven't, but I'm a fan of the audiobooks too, because I would drive down to Memphis to go
Yes.
visit my old buddies and stuff, and I'd punch in back in the day when it was a cassette.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
punch it into the car and listen. And I remember listening once to Gulliver's Travels.
Really?
On a on a cassette. About audio making the ride, and then and then newer books and stuff. But I thought it was kind of cool to go listen to an old classic.
Okay.
That would be a really long audiobook, I assume.
You guys will appreciate this. This is how old I felt this weekend. My wife says to me, we're all together. My daughter's in from college. We're celebrating my wife's birthday. We all go to pick up. Of course, you're picking her up stuff from the store. Because when she's in, you got to pick up stuff.
Oh, of course, stock her up.
We walk into this store, and I always go right over to this, and I say this because the kids of today are like, are you kidding me, Rick? I went over to the CD section. And you guys all know I love music. I jam. But I'm a big Carlos Santana fan. I have been for many, many decades. So Carlos got back together with the original lineup with Neil Schon, Greg Raleigh, the guys that put together the original lineup with Santana's biggest hits, right? So this album CD, and everybody's like, what's an album? CD just came out. So I get in this rental car that I have. I'm so stoked to put in this CD, and I go, and my daughters are crying, laughing. They're like, Dad, there's no CD player. It's a newer car. All it's got is the little
aux cord.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm jonesing to hear a little
funny.
Carlos and Neil Schon jam.
Oh,
so
that's
needless
yeah.
to say, I went and threw it in my computer, which, by the way, still has. speaking of
You
Younger
had
Life
to
Live,
wait.
the
Listen to
CD
you.
stuff.
Patience.
That's good.
Not
That's good
easy.
stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is funny the way things
Kind of
evolve and change.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you have
That's
got
funny.
a number of folks, if you don't mind, and we're going to throw this up. We got a triple camera shot going right now of the three of us, Mary Anthony, myself, Rick Federici, Dennis Foley, right here. If I show you the back, Dennis, can you kind of go through some of the folks that you collaborated with? Obviously, you've got Bill
Right.
Donlin on the front, yourself, Dennis Foley, but can you chat a little bit, if you wouldn't mind? And I'm going to do a shot of you right now so you can kind of bond on this.
And, so there's a listing in the back of some of the different writers that we highlighted in the book. But Stuart Dybeck, I spoke about him just a little bit ago, considered probably the best short story writer in Chicago. He's a professor at Northwestern, real down-to-earth guy, grew up in the Pilsen area, has a funny story in here about a field trip, 2 field trips during school that the nuns took him on. They took him one to, they're in 5th grade, to the Cook County Jail, because this is where a lot of you are probably going to end up anyway.
Oh, that's
Oh my
terrible.
God.
And then that one didn't go real well, and I won't say why, but if folks read it, they'll get a hoot
Get
out
the
of
book.
it.
Get the book.
And then the second field trip was, hey, you know what? Let's go to the back of the yards and watch animals get slaughtered. So that was the they took him to the slaughterhouses the following year.
Terrible.
But Rick Cogan's in here. Rick, a Tribune writer,
Sure.
WGN guy. He has a great story in here. Writing about kind of like his dad was a writer and how it kind of turned him into that path, and his kind of his run-ins with one of our most famous Chicago writers too. So he talks about that here. And Joe Mino's a young, with it and hip kind of writer. He's got a cool story in here about, it's a shorty, but how he's on the sands of Lake Michigan, and he sees an older couple kind of watching him, and he kind of dawns on him that we haven't really even lived yet. So that, and then a couple other ones I'll highlight. R.J. Eldridge has a great poem in here. We hear so much about what's going on in the Chicago area with, the Inglewood neighborhood, and you hear about bodies falling and bullets flying. And he writes, so he has a poem in here, so powerful. He read it at the release party back about 3 weeks ago, and folks really liked it. It's called Inglewood, and it's a really, really strong poem. Patricia McNair had a short story collection called The Temple of Air. And it won the Chicago Writers Association Book Award about 4 years ago. Very talented writer. I'll skip around a little bit. John Gazlowski we spoke about. Chris Mazza has a cool one in here. She's a writer who wrote about a story about what was a run-in and what's going on at the old Chicago Stadium. So you kind of get a little bit of that taste. And just hitting on a couple others here. Eric May, great novel called Bedrock Faith. He's from the Morgan Park area on the south side, and he was like the Tribune or Chicago Man of the Year 2 years ago. Great honor for him. Last couple I'll hit on here. If you want to laugh and really bust a gut, read Pat Hickey's South Side Soliloquy. And it's the old story of when you walk up to somebody and you say, "Hey, how's it going?" You better be prepared, because sometimes you may get like a half-hour response.
It's so true.
And
it's so true.
that's what happens in this story. And then the guy finishes with his half-hour response and says, "Hey, and Hickey, how are your kids, by the way?" And in between is the story.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll kind of point out here too, Gary Johnson. Powerful story about Marquette Park in 1976, back in when the neighborhood was very, very divided between blacks and whites, and you had a group of black marchers that were coming in, and what happened at the park and in the neighborhood that day. It's a piece of Chicago history, and that's what we try to do, is have stories that cover from the 1900s up to the current day, so you get a taste of the entire kind of package there.
Well, I love that there are some of the moving stories, like emotionally moving, and then some lighthearted, some funny. I like that. I think that's important. I think that is just adds so much to the book itself.
You want to see something real cute? Hit up page 237. Mary is going to put it up into our camera right now. Rick Federici, Mary Anthony, Dennis Foley. We Speak Chicagoese. Stories and poems by Chicago writers, edited by Bill Donlin and Dennis Foley. Do you see that cute little picture up on top? Page 237, top of the page.
Yes.
Who is that cute kid?
How cute is that?
Look at that.
Oh my gosh, you are so cute.
Yes,
that's the old communion picture on the cover of
fantastic.
That was one of my
That's
book.
so
I mentioned the Drunkard's Son, which was really a fun but tough story to write too. But my mom had raised us 6 kids. My dad died young. He had his problems with booze. Wasn't an abusive guy or anything like that. Just he couldn't be counted on.
Right.
And wasn't there. He died. I was 12. And he wasn't around for much of my early life. So, we're writing about our family was probably very similar to many other families in the South Side then. And that's the Drunkard's Son, talking about, I got stabbed in the back when I was a kid, a sophomore in high school, in an alley fight. And as I lay there in the hospital bed, I reflect back on the path that led to putting me there.
Wow.
And so that's how I know the title's a tough title. But some members of my family didn't like it at first, but then it grew on them because they said, I think that's an honest title.
Yeah.
But my mom's kind of the hero of the book, because she strapped 6 kids on her back and raised us all working as a waitress.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
I bet that was
And
a
that's
tough
the communion
book.
picture, Rick.
You
right
are
there on the
awesome.
cover.
I imagine that would have
Thank
been
you,
really
Big G.
tough to write. I imagine that would have been really tough to write. That's anytime you involve your own family, especially when you're talking your whole family, not just your own personal view, but your whole family, and especially when there might be some not wonderful things to highlight. at in different parts, that would be really, really hard.
One of the cool things about it, though, Mary, with that book is I had people who read it come up to me and said that, hey, you know what, it's assigned reading now, like I said, in a couple different high schools.
Yes.
Fabulous.
That their sons made them feel so good because they realized that you could you'll grow up with an alcoholic parent and still do okay for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I said, I don't know if I'm the if I'm the person where you're getting the okay part from, but
No.
yeah, I think you can march on.
That's
okay.
important.
Yes.
And that is important. I think that's beautiful, really hard to do. I'm curious, Dennis, before we wrap up, what's the next big dream for you that you're reaching for? I got to know.
This is awesome.
I am working on something. It's getting pretty close to being finished. I oftentimes I have a tough time when I get to the end of a work of actually wrapping it up,
Really?
and that's where I am right now because I want to go on to something else. Maybe it's that ADHD again, kind of moving me on to something else.
All about it.
But it's what I've kind of titled the Blue Circus, and it would be my days. It's a view of the city of Chicago and the political scene and all what's going on. But not through the eyes of the politicians or
Right.
the cops and all that. Through the underbelly of those streets and sand workers.
Fantastic.
And in a family saga as well.
Well, you'll have to come in and tell us about that.
Absolutely.
That
We'll
would
be
be
back.
great.
30 seconds, we'll be back. Don't you go away. To wrap it up with Dennis Foley, Rick Federici, Mary Anthony. Younger Life brought to you today by the LaPorte Hospital.
During a medical emergency, every minute matters. That's why at LaPorte Hospital, you'll find less waiting where you need it most, in our emergency room. In fact, we will work to have you initially seen by a medical professional in 30 minutes or less. And because we're a full-service hospital, we can provide more care if you need it. Less waiting, faster care. The 30 minutes or less ER service pledge at LaPorte Hospital.
All right, crazy kids, we're back. Woo, 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 woo. As we wrap up, see? Wasn't this awesome,
I know it.
We love him
We
to
knew it would be a
pieces.
good one.
Yeah, it would be. Dennis, I hope you had a good time. So, did you
This has
come
been
in?
great.
You have friends and family around the area, obviously?
Yeah. And by the way, leaving here, I'm pumped up too. You can't help but get the electricity coming out of here
Thank
with you
you.
guys. You're a lot of
Good.
fun. Yeah, and I was telling you, Rick, too, one of the exchanges we had back and forth, emails. There's friends in the area here, and my brother has a place up in the area. But one of the things I like to give a little shout out is to my friends over at the Chesterton and also the Crown Point Youth Lacrosse guys.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I help and I coach teams over at the Beverly Youth Lacrosse. We're all in the same league, so I see those guys all the time.
Yes.
Great. Well, we have to have them back. Are you ready to come back another time?
That would be great.
We love you.
to.
And I want to throw this out there. If you ever want to put together, I'm all about projects, and I've got a lot of people, as you know, I could tap to, including Mary and myself. I would love to help you create this and your other wonderful works on an audio portion. So
That would be cool.
Sit down and bond with you
Thanks,
on that.
Rick.
And continued success, Dennis Foley. We speak Chicago.
AM 1420
Stories told
WIMS,
by
Nick
Chicago
Foley.
writers.
2 minutes
Thanks
to the top
for
of the hour. We
I
got
also
CBS News
wanna
coming
throw a
up.
quick shout out
That
with
was
30
Younger
seconds
Live.
left.
Rick and Mary
I noticed
rocking
Maggie
it as
Carson.
always.
Who's that?
Always a great
Maggie
show.
Carson is one of our
Go
persons
Cubs
that
right
was a
after
reader
the
of the
World
book.
Series.
So she would,
Hoorah,
we had
everybody
a number of
in.
sets of
Great
eyes going
spirits
through
today.
Yeah, that's a great
on this
idea.
Thursday.
Thumbs
Feels
down
like
on
a
the
Friday.
stories
Sure
and
wish it
she's
was a
a great
Friday.
host.
AM 1420 WIMS. You're talking to
Thank you,
South Shore.
Dennis.
Always
So much
streaming
fun.
live at
Thanks for
WIMSradio.com.
having me.
Also, go
Thanks
check
for
out
joining us on
WIMSradio.com for a little bit of news, traffic, and weather all across Lake Porter and LaPorte County. And also, Grand Valley State Lakers undefeated still on the air. AM 1420 WIMS, your home for Grand Valley State Laker football. Tune in this Saturday, 2:30, as they take on Saginaw Valley, trying to keep that undefeated season rolling. CBS News coming up.
AM 1420, WIMS, Michigan City, a Girard Media Company station.
CBS News. I'm Steve Kathan. There's more evidence the race for the White House is going right down to the wire. Hillary Clinton has a 3-point lead over Donald Trump in the latest CBS News New York Times national poll. That's within the margin of error. 2 weeks ago, she led by 9 points. CBS News senior political editor Steve Chigueras.
The question for her is, can she get the traditional Democratic voters out enthusiastically for her. And I think what we're seeing in some of these polls is there might be some questions about that, whether it's African American voters, whether it's these sort of soft voters who are maybe fatigued by this whole process.
CBS's Nancy Cordes says the candidate herself has been painting a dark picture of a possible Trump presidency.
It's almost as if rather than trying to motivate voters to go to the polls out of a devotion to the Democratic Party or a devotion to her, they're trying to scare Democrats essentially into getting out and voting.
CBS's Major Garrett is on the GOP beat.
What the Trump campaign sees is a surge of momentum, a surge of voter interest and enthusiasm that some of the polls have captured, but they believe they see more than the polls currently indicate.
The mayor of Greenville, Mississippi, calls it a hate crime, and the FBI has opened a civil rights investigation into the arson that charred an African-American Baptist church. The words "Vote Trump" were spray painted on one of the walls. Overseas, an Afghan official says 26 civilians were killed in the assault that left 2 American service members dead. The official says 65 Taliban fighters also died in the battle. At the Pentagon, CBS's Cammie McCormick tells us.
Defense Secretary Ash Carter says he was saddened to learn of the casualties. The Americans were acting as trainers and advisors in Kunduz. That's an area in northern Afghanistan that's been retaken by the Taliban twice. The Americans were killed and 2 others wounded when they came under fire while targeting senior Taliban commanders during a joint operation. There have been 4 other combat deaths among American forces this year.
The UN says as many as 240 people may have died in 2 migrant shipwrecks off Libya. The UN official Baber Balouch describes what happened to one of the ships.
The wooden planks at the bottom of the dinghy that they were traveling on broke, causing the dinghy to capsize approximately 25 miles off the Libyan coast.
Well, back here at home, Chicago Cubs fans are basking in the glory of a World Series title. The Cubs won their first championship in 108 years with an 8-7 Game 7 win over the Cleveland Indians, reducing talk of a curse to folklore and reducing some fans to tears.
Absolutely unbelievable. These guys are great. They really made the city for us. They're really great. They're really great. Unbelievable.
A crowd at Wrigley Field greeted the Cubs this morning as they returned. White Sox fan Barack Obama tweeted he hopes the Cubs can visit the White House. The Dow is up 23 points. This is CBS News.
What if you could store your IRA or 401k where you could see, touch, and hold it in person in the form of physical gold and silver coins? With the Augusta Gold and Silver IRA, you can transfer retirement savings into physical coins